Israel has sought the release of 34 hostages in the first stage of a ceasefire deal in Gaza, claims the Hezbollah-affiliated Mayadeen news outlet, citing an anonymous Hamas official. Now, the 34 hostages include all remaining women and children, female IDF soldiers, and the sick and elderly. According to this report, Israel, in return, will release an unconfirmed number of Palestinian security prisoners, including some serving life sentences. The Hamas official tells Al-Mayadeen that during the first 42-day phase of the ceasefire, Israel will allow increased flow of humanitarian aid to enter the strip, as well as the equipment needed to repair and rebuild Gaza's hospitals and public facilities. Now, the official further claims that Israel has also agreed to withdraw from densely populated areas in the strip during this phase. He says that while all parties have agreed to reopen the Rafah crossing on the border with Egypt during the first phase, the issue of who will maintain control of the crossing is yet to be resolved. Meanwhile, Israeli Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi said that the Israeli army is exerting pressure on Hamas daily, driving it into greater distress to ensure the return of the 100 hostages.
We are dismantling Hamas and targeting its infrastructure and forces so that there will never be another October 7th. We are exerting pressure on Hamas daily, driving it into greater distress to ensure the return of the 100 hostages, hopefully alive, and for those who are not, to provide them a burial in Israel.
The military released video of Halevi visiting forces in the southern Gaza Strip of Rafah on Wednesday. Israel ordered Palestinians to evacuate another section of central Gaza ahead of an offensive in the built-up Burej refugee camp, even as Israel and Hamas appeared to inch closer to a ceasefire in the 14th-month war. Israeli bombardment and offensives in Gaza have killed more than 45,000 Palestinians during the war, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. The ministry's tally does not distinguish between combatants and civilians, but it says more than half the dead were women and children. Now, in latest developments, the Israeli army said sirens were sounded across central Israel as it intercepted a missile fired from Yemen. The Israeli Air Force intercepted the missile before it crossed into Israeli territory, and the military in a statement said that the warning sirens were sounded due to the possibility of falling debris from the interception. Now, this is the second time this week that the Israeli military has intercepted a missile from Yemen. Shortly after, Israel said that it struck ports and energy infrastructure it alleges were being used by Houthi rebels in Yemen. According to the Israeli army, precise strikes were conducted on Houthi military targets in Yemen, including ports and energy infrastructure in Sana'a, which the Houthis have been using in their military actions.
The Houthis have been carrying out attacks against Israel in violation of international law, and the Houthi regime is a threat to peace and security in the region.
Later, Houthi group spokesman said the rebels had targeted two specific military sites near Tel Aviv with hypersonic ballistic missiles, and the operation was carried out simultaneously with the Israeli aggressions in Yemen, Sana'a and Hodeidah.
The operation was carried out simultaneously with the Israeli aggression on civilian facilities in the capital Sana'a and the Hodeidah governorate, including power stations, and our response came within the natural and legitimate response.
All right, to quickly give you a round of development in the region. In other developments, the IDF soldiers located an underground tunnel route in southern Lebanon that led to a Hezbollah command center, in which they discovered weapons, surveillance systems and additional military equipment used by the militant group. Nearby, several weapon storage facilities were found where hundreds of explosives, rifles, grenades and additional military equipment was stored. The engineering troops dismantled the command center and the underground tunnel route, confiscating all the weapons found in the area. All right, for more on this, we're now being joined live on the broadcast by Josh Hasnan, Israeli journalist and Middle East correspondent for Jewish News Syndicate from Jerusalem. Thank you so much for joining me. I wanted to understand, soon after the fall of Damascus, the statements had started coming out from the Israeli side that a ceasefire and a truce deal and exchange deal will be, it is imminent. Do you feel that has in a way played out and there is no further impediment now for the ceasefire to take shape?
Well, from what we understand, Israel's highest leadership is meeting today on this very issue to discuss a potential deal with Hamas. We're talking about hostages being returned home in exchange for terrorist prisoners. Israel is insisting that the hardened terrorist prisoners are not able to go back to Gaza or go back to communities in Judea and Samaria. Israel wants them removed from the area so they do not pose another threat, so that Hamas cannot carry out another October 7th attack. Now, let's remember, Hamas has rejected every single ceasefire offer until now. And why are things different in these current negotiations? The fact is Hamas has been weakened tremendously. They no longer have Hezbollah on the northern border on their side. And Israel has targeted Iran time and time again. So Hamas is definitely leaning towards accepting some sort of deal. Israel wants, of course, to get back all 100 hostages. Hopefully many of those are alive and those who are not alive for a proper burial. But in terms of the situation right now, it does look like Israel and Hamas, via third parties, Egypt, Qatar, and whatnot, are on the verge of working out some sort of deal.
Josh, 34 hostages in exchange for an undisclosed number of prisoners. Last time there was 3 prisoners per hostage. Do you find any kind of ratio like that repeating itself this time as well, or any other word that you've heard on what the exchange deal kind of entails?
At this point, Israel has not confirmed anything in terms of numbers of hostages for prisoners. We don't know exactly officially what that deal might look like. I understand that you heard a report there indicating as such, but on this end, we have not been given any confirmation in terms of who's going to be released, how many Israeli hostages will be set free, and who exactly are the prisoners which Israel is willing to let go. But it is very important to note that you're talking about terrorists who are in Israeli jails, who have committed mass murder, who have carried out horrible attacks against the Israeli people. And that is why Israel does not want them. First of all, we don't want to release any of these terrorists, but if we must do so in order to bring back the hostages or force Hamas to release the hostages, we want them not in this area. We want them not to have the ability to carry out another October 7th style attack.
Josh, regarding the Rafah crossing, who controls it even after a ceasefire is in place, or as and when the war subsides? Is there any word on that? Because that has been a sticking point in the past, due to which the ceasefire has not really been fully achieved or achieved at all. Since November last year, we've not seen that truce happen.
Yeah, Israel until now is insisting that it maintain control over Rafah and the Netzarim crossing. And the reason is because for so many years, Hamas was smuggling weapons from Egypt. And we cannot go back to a situation where Hamas once again starts bringing in weapons, reestablishes itself in Gaza in order to be able to carry out other types of attacks. So I believe, and sources indicate at this point, that Israel will maintain some sort of presence in Gaza, whether it includes the Philadelphia corridor, that's the strategic area between Egypt and Gaza, and the Netzarim corridor, which is a main artery, as well as certain areas in northern Gaza. I think Israel will have to maintain a military presence for a long time. We cannot have another October 7th massacre. That is the bottom line.
Josh, very quickly, I just want to also get your thoughts on this. Do you feel the incoming fire from Yemen, it's happened twice this week already, do you feel that can be any kind of impediment in the talks which seem to be finalizing now for the ceasefire?
Yeah, I don't think so. Let's remember that the Houthis have fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel, another 170 drones. I was given a rude awakening this morning at about 4:30 a.m. when I heard a large boom overhead. Israel intercepting one of those, intercepting that missile, which was fired, ballistic missile, and it actually fell on a school building near Tel Aviv. Imagine if that happened during the day. These are who the Houthis are. They are an Iranian proxy. They are a terrorist organization who have fired, again, hundreds of missiles and drones at the state of Israel. And the United States also struck the Houthis just the other day. This terrorist organization must be dismantled. And I think the U.S. and Israel see eye to eye on that issue. I don't think it's so much related to the situation in Gaza in terms of the hostage negotiations, but let's be clear, Israel's on a war on 7 different fronts, and Israel must remain victorious. We must be victorious on all of those 7 different fronts, including dismantling the Houthi terrorist infrastructure, as you mentioned, taking out the ports and the energy infrastructure, which we did today. Let's remember, this was planned several weeks ago. By coincidence, it was at the same moment almost that the Houthis attacked us in the middle of the night. They are related because of the fact that the Houthis attack us time and time again, but this was a coordinated, precise operation which Israel carried out in response to the aggression by the Houthis against the state of Israel.
We hear you. Josh Hasten, thank you so much for joining me. That was Josh joining us from Jerusalem with the latest.
Thank you.